In the recent episode of The Flash, episode 10 of The Flash season 4, The Flash gets arrested for murder and then goes to trial for it. And if you haven't seen this episode, spoiler alert, but don't worry because you're not missing much, as this idea was the worst idea the show's writers have had to date. The episode itself is actually not that bad on the whole. The dialogue isn't terrible and it is kind of entertaining, but the concept is just so stupid it beggars belief. The Flash is standing trial after being framed for a murder, and perfectly framed at that. There is airtight evidence and circumstance that will 100% get Barry Allen convicted for life. And while the idea of the Flash being put in prison for a crime he didn't commit is not in itself a terrible idea, it could actually be quite interesting if it's done right. But it isn't done right, and the execution is terrible. And this video is going to go over some of the things I hated about this episode. During the trial, the prosecution points out that Barry Allen is always leaving early from work and that he's always late and that he randomly took 6 months off with no warning. Now, we all know this is because he was busy being the Flash, but the prosecution asks why the captain hasn't reprimanded him for any of this, which is exactly what would happen in the real world. And the answer is bad writing. The writers haven't provided an explanation for how or why Barry Allen never does any CSI work for the police anymore, despite being the only CSI worker that we ever see, apart from Draco Malfoy in Season 3. It's never made any sense, as a city this big needs a huge staff of CSI workers, but it's a TV show and there's a budget for the cast, and we all know this, so we gloss over it as a small detail. But making a point of it in the episode is just embarrassing for the writers. They're literally pointing out their own incompetence. Now, all through the trial, the others are saying, just tell him you're the Flash and we can get you cleared of all the charges. And Barry is dead against it, because it will put the others in danger if the villains know who put them away. But what about all the villains who will run amok while the Flash spends the rest of his life in prison? He even says he won't use his powers to escape because that's wrong and against the law, guaranteeing that villains will take over the city. And the Flash is so worried about breaking the law here, and yet he abducts metahumans all the time and puts them in his own private prison with no trial or due process. And this prison, by the way, has no bed in the cells, no chair or even a toilet, not even a bucket in the corner for them to use. That means that this illegal prison is inhumane and in violation of God's alone knows how many laws. And kidnapping and inhumane treatment are some of the worst laws that you can break, and yet the Flash has no problem with that. But getting out of prison when he's innocent and being framed, that he has a problem with. Which is why the episode doesn't work, as he's completely contradicting himself and his character. I mean, he does it all the time, and that's fine because it's usually in a small way and we can go with it for the most part. But you can't spend a whole episode drawing attention to this because it just points out all the flaws in the show's writing. And that's the episode's fatal flaw. It's desperately trying to show how much he's willing to sacrifice to be the Flash and how heroic he is because of this, but it's being done so badly. As I said, Barry doesn't want anyone knowing that he's the Flash, because it could put a target on the others' backs as the villains will know who's been stopping them. Even though the whole gang regularly talks to the villains without wearing a mask or costume, so people know who they are and could easily just go on Facebook or some such and look through the Coast City people until they find them. And at one point, Barry actually leaves the trial, his own trial which he's on for murder, to go and save some people, which the judge can't believe and basically says that he's going to add more years to the Flash's sentence because of him leaving. But the Flash has to save people, no matter what this does to Barry Allen. And that's desperately what the writers keep bashing over our head in this episode. And it doesn't make sense because if the Flash is in a prison cell, he can't save people. It's just poor writing and it makes no sense. And it's really over the top with its message. The last 2 minutes they have this terrible mirroring session where Barry Allen is getting convicted by the judge and at the same time the captain is given a commendation for the Flash. To desperately show us all how the Flash's sacrifices are hurting Barry Allen, but he'll do it anyway because it helps the people. Even though, again, from prison, he can't help anyone. It's just dumb. I mean, why did the Flash even get arrested and go to trial and then prison in the first place? Because a dead body was put in his apartment and then the police stormed in and found him with it. And he decides not to run.
Don't run.
Keep your hands where I can see him, Barry.
But to let them arrest him. Even though everyone in the show has continually been telling him for the past 4 years that the way to solve his problems is to run.
Run, Barry, run.
Run, Barry. Run.
Run, Barry.
What he should have done was move at super speed, pick up the body and get it out of the apartment and take it to Star Labs. No one finds it, no trial, he doesn't go to prison. That was the only way that this would have made sense. But instead, he moronically decides to just get framed for a crime he didn't commit. The Thinker may have framed him for this crime, but the only person to blame for the Flash being in prison is the Flash himself for his absolute stupidity, as he very easily could have avoided this whole mess. And yes, I know this was just done because the writers wanted a dramatic end to the final episode of the first half of the season, but it feels so forced and unorganic. What the writers should have done if they wanted this dramatic end was have the police storm in as Barry Allen stands there, then cut to the credits. Then, at the beginning of the 10th episode, just have what I said happen. Have the Flash quickly run the corpse out and come back. You get a dramatic end, and you don't have to deal with all this stupid trial nonsense. And although it is a good cliffhanger, it's a terrible idea to do, as the writers have backed themselves into a corner. I mean, how are they going to get the Flash out of prison and his name cleared in a way that is satisfying to the fans and that actually makes sense? Maybe they have some really clever trick up their sleeve that'll amaze us, but given the quality of the writing of the show recently, I kind of doubt it. I mean, let's just pray they're not going to go back in time and rewrite history again, because that would really be the end of the show. And it's a shame, because so far I've actually been really enjoying Season 4. Having a non-speedster as the big villain is something that I've been waiting for ever since Season 2 started. I never thought they'd just copy and paste a speedster villain for 3 seasons, but that is kind of what they ended up doing. And moving away from that was desperately overdue, as a lot of the Flash's rogues gallery aren't even speedsters, so they've got plenty of villains to choose from who are much more interesting than someone who just wants to run faster than the Flash.
Never forget, I am the fastest man alive.
And the Thinker has come across brilliantly so far, as a genius who's planned everything out meticulously, and I love what they've done with the character. But my enjoyment has plummeted because instead of watching an episode of The Flash vs. The Thinker, we instead watched a boring trial that literally pointed out all the flaws in the show that the writers have been making for the past few seasons. I actually thought they might reveal that he's the Flash at one point, which would have been a hell of a lot more interesting and original, and I would have genuinely been surprised and interested to see where they were going with it, which is probably why they didn't do it. Him revealing he's the Flash would be stupid, but not nearly as stupid as him getting arrested and put in prison for the rest of his life. And a show where the Flash's identity is outed would certainly be a lot more interesting than a show where the Flash is trapped in a prison cell. Now, the point I thought they might actually do this is during the trial when Iris is actually about to tell the court that Barry Allen is the Flash, and we all thought she was about to do this, which is why at this point they had a commercial break. And then when we come back, suddenly the Flash moves so fast that he essentially freezes time for everyone but him and Iris, and they have a 3-minute chat, which basically involves him saying, "Don't tell everyone I'm the Flash," and she's like, okay, I was just going to do it to save your life so you'd don't go to prison and we could have the happy ever after, but you know what, you've just reiterated the point you said before, and this is definitely the intelligent thing to do. I mean, how could he freeze time for 3 minutes and have this little chat, but he couldn't do that to remove a corpse in his apartment before the police found it? Again, this just makes no sense and is so badly thought out. Sorry to go on a rant like this, but this has really annoyed me as the show was really starting to pick up again, and then it's just gone completely downhill again. But with that being said, this is just my opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people did really enjoy the episode. And if you did, then I'm happy for you, and feel free to let us know how much you liked it in the comments. And if anyone has a theory on how the hell they're going to get the Flash out of this one, then again, please let us know in the comments. And that's the end of this little rant. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.